those 80 days is complete, 81 days is complete, the formation of the child has started, and the soul is in it. But for that reason, if a woman has that abortion in that state, then it's considered damun nifas. You leaving? You gotta go? So you just press the button, right? Just the red button on the screen. Just tap it. Oh, okay. Read. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Excuse me, where's the last one? Excuse me, sisters, just give me 1 second. We already did that, alhamdulillah. We did that, alhamdulillah. Now, Jayyid. Also, we mentioned from last class, we said that there was furuq, there was differences between that which is of a nifas, or that which is of a postnatal bleeding, and that which is hayd. We said that there was differences between them, and from those differences is what? That it's not from the signs of a woman reaching puberty. That nifas is not from the signs of a woman reaching puberty. Rather, that which is of hayd is the sign. That which is a woman's mens, or menstruation, that is what? A clear sign that she's reached the age of puberty. That's the first difference between that which is nifas and that which is what? Hayd. And also likewise, we said that which is from the differences of that which is of between hayd and that which is nifas is that which is of the ila. We mentioned that last week also likewise. Ila. And we said that ila is that a person would swear by Allah that he will leave off being intimate with his wife for a long period of time, or just generally. We will say out of anger, for example, I will not be intimate with you until the Dajjal comes out, for example. Or muddat al-tazid, or that which is a period of time that is more than 4 months. We said here, that which is of a ila, if a man does this, then what is counted is what? The woman's mens and not the woman's what? Nifas. Jayyid. It's not counted. And that's also the difference between that which is hayd and that which is nifas. If a man does this, if he does say, for example, I swear by Allah, I won't be intimate with you for a year straight. If he says this, then it's obligatory for him to count 4 months, depending on her mens, not upon her nifas. If he lets her come back, he brings her back, and then he also now, in this instance, he will also have to carry out that expiation for who he swore by Allah, and he'll have to break it. And if he breaks that, of course we know the expiation for it is, that which is a side point, is that he will have to feed 10 people, or clothe them, or what? Or that which is of freeing a concubine, and if he does not, then he fasts for 3 days. But that which, if he does that and says, I swear by Allah I won't do this, then he's counted 4 months, dependent on a woman's mens, and not on the woman's what? Not on a woman's nifas. And that's the difference between, and also the second difference that we clarified from last class. Also, likewise, we said also the difference between that which is hayd and nifas is what, everyone? Exactly, is that which is of the iddah. The woman in the iddah does not use her nifas, but that which is of counted or which is counted. As far as if a woman is divorced and she's in the iddah, then what she will use to count it is her mens and not her what? Not the nifas. So that which is the differences, like we said, between that which is hayd and nifas are these what we mentioned. Even though they agree with one another as far as the hukm of what a woman abstains from during that period of time. But however, they oppose one another in those matters that we just mentioned. And that's it. I'm going to make it too difficult. We'll stop here as far as in that which is pertaining to the woman's mens, and as far as that which is the iddah. We said that which for the man to stay away from divorcing his wife while she's in these states, except that which is istihada, that's something different. But other than that, we warned our brothers not to do this, not to divorce his wife while she's on her mens, and to stay with khilaf, is that which is of her postnatal bleeding, and to not divorce his wife during the period of time he was just intimate with her. All that's impermissible. And if he was in Islamic court, if he was in Islamic state, and the judge reached this, there would be a punishment for this due to that. It's a major sin to do this. So we tell our brothers and remind them. Of course, we're not like Abu Muslim or that, which is the Hizbis who try to establish the punishment in the masjid, in the basement of the masajid. We're not like that. But we're just saying that if this was the case where you were in an Islamic state and that reached the judge, there would be that which is of a discipline or disciplinary action would be taken in order to remind the man not to do these type of matters. But we're not like those ignorant masajid, those in which you will find some of the ikhwanis that they say we're going to come to our masjid, we're going to establish the had or the penalty in the basement or the undergrounds of our masajid and beat people up if they commit zina. We're going to lash them in the basements. We are not like them due to the fact you're not in a Muslim country and you're not the authorities to dish out these type of penalties. And you're not in those salahiyat, those type of jurisdictions is only for the people of that which is of the level of the authorities or the Muslim leaders. That's it. Last thing we want to talk about before we end the class off, inshallah, I wanted to talk a little bit about that which is of whether or not a sister could come in the masjid, if she's on her mens or not. Oh boy. As far as we know, to start off a little bit before we end the class off, we said and we talked about that the sister, when she's on her mens or she's on a postnatal bleeding, she abstains from what? The salah. And likewise, she abstains from siyam. All that's clear, inshallah. Also, she does not go around or make or perform that which is of that circumambulation around the Kaaba, where she goes around the Kaaba. Also, likewise, we said from the hukum or from the ahkam, if a woman's on her mens or postnatal bleeding, she does not have to make that farewell tawaf or that farewell circumambulation around the Kaaba during Hajj either. That falls. And that type of performance of that ritual during Hajj also is not incumbent upon her to carry it out. طيب. Now we get to that which also, what a woman abstains from while she's on her mens and her postnatal bleeding is what everyone, that she's not intimate with her spouse at all. She cannot be intimate with her spouse as far as in where we said in the hadith what? As far as the private part. But other than that, then is what? It is permissible. Then also what is impermissible, as we talked about before, is it's kind of cold in here. Nobody here today. Also, likewise, that which is of a talaq. Of a divorce, is also impermissible while a woman is on her mens. It is impermissible for a man to divorce his wife while she's on her mens and while she's on her postnatal bleeding. While she's on her mens, but as far as the postnatal bleeding, we said there's some ikhtilaf in that, but if it's better for the man to abstain from it and wait for the blood to go off and stop, and then divorce his wife. Even though we mentioned what Shaykh Uthaymeen mentioned, he said it's permissible while she's in the state of her nifas, but gather between all Ahl Ilm, it's better for one to wait until the woman's bleeding stops and to divorce her. Now we get into the last thing of which a woman has to abstain from, which is what? Two things. Number one, we'll talk about was that which is pertaining to the Quran. We'll talk about that next week. Number two, of that which is of what is permissible for a woman to do as far as her coming in the masjid. That's what we'll speak about today, and that's it. Muhsin, you know how to turn that heat on? No, cut it on. It's kind of cold there, isn't it? You have the key. You know the key. Okay. For number one, we say, we mention, and we'll mention some of the aqwal al-ilm, then after that, like I said, inshallah bi'idhnillah, we'll mention some of the adillah in regards to this matter. I'll read the evidences and the proofs. Number one, we want to lay down the foundation. Number one is that we give precedence to the kitab and the sunnah over no matter who it is. Even though we have respect for that, and we give, and we also hold in high esteem our ulama, and we love them, and they will be ma'jur for their ijtihad. And they will be given a reward for that which they put forth of an utmost effort in trying to find the evidences and the proofs that agrees with the kitab and sunnah. But if it becomes clear to us that a certain evidence, or a certain statement opposes the kitab and sunnah, then it's incumbent upon us to take what Allah and His Messenger have said, if it's clear, and to also reject that which is a statement that opposes that, no matter who it is. So we lay down that foundation before we actually start in the actual lesson today. For number one, I want to say this, of that which even from our scholars and that from them is al-Imam al-Albani rahimahullah. I'll start in what he mentions and some of the evidences he mentions. He says, number one, it's not clear, or nor is it frank, you'll find a dalil of that which is pertaining to the woman being on her mens, what prevents her from coming in the masjid. We know that the majority of the ulama, they say that a woman could come in and just pass by. You will notice that is the majority of what they say. She could come in the masjid, but come in the masjid to only what? Just to pass by the masjid. Like she just goes in, gets something, and then comes back out and goes and minds her business. You'll find that's the majority of the aqwal, of the statements of Ahl Ilm, what they say. That it's only for murur. She can only pass by. She could come in, but she can't sit and remain. طيب. So number one, we say that which is the haqq al-ha'id, that which is pertaining to the woman who's on her mens. Listen to what he says, rahimahullah. He says, لم يرد دليل ثابت صريح في حق الحائض ما يمنعها من دخول المسجد والأصل عدم المنع قد وردت جملة من المؤيدات لهذا الأصل مقررة للبراءة الأصلية منها ما ثبت من حديث عائشة رضي الله عنها فيما رواه البخاري وغيره أن وليدة سوداء كانت لحي من العرب to the end of it فأعتقوها فجاءت إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فأزلمت to the end of the hadith. He said there's no frank dalil. He says of that which is pertaining to the woman who's on her mens will prevent her from coming in the masjid. Of course, you know all the ulama say she could come in the masjid. All of them, Shaykh Uthaymeen, Shaykh Salih Fawzan, she can come in the masjid, but she cannot stay and remain in it. But she can come, grab something, pass by, and keep it moving. But Shaykh al-Albani, what he's mentioning here, he said there's no dalil to say that she cannot come in the masjid. There's no dalil for that. And he said that the origin is that is what? It's not prohibited. It's adam al-mana'. There's no prohibition. He said rather there's that which is of a group. And you'll find numerous of texts that aids this foundation and this origin. This origin what has been acknowledged of that which they call al-bara' al-asliya minha. Of that which is of the non-prohibition of this from those evidences that aid what we're talking about now. And from them is the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, which comes in the Bukhari and other than Bukhari, that there was that woman that was walida. She was that which is of walidatun sauda. That there was a woman that was black, and she was in the neighborhood from the neighborhoods of the Arab. And they freed her. And she came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she became Muslim. So it was known that she had that type of khaba. Kana laha khaba fil masjid. Or hafsh, that she has some type of that was similar to like a tent or a little small like a little small place in the masjid. And he said, it is known that usually in most cases that a woman is going to have her mens. She was staying in the masjid and she was staying there for that which is of those numerous days. And it is known that a woman is going to have her mens usually in most cases, except that which is absolutely nadir, that which is absolutely considered from those rare cases. But most cases, the woman is going to have her mens. And it has not been conveyed upon the Prophet ﷺ that he commanded her to stay away from the masjid during the time of her what? Of her mens. So the origin is the adamu. So the origin is there's no prohibition. And it's not correct that a person can say, to go against that, he said that it happened, that is something specific. It was only for her, only specifically. He said there's no generalities to it, that is just only specifically for her. He said we can't say that. Because if we say that, then we'll have to give a specific dalil to show the takhsis, that it was only specifically for her. But there's no dalil for that to say it was only specifically for her situation. So we stay upon that which is the bara al-asliyah, that which is the foundation, that which is the origin. And also that which also aids this dalil is that the Prophet ﷺ has said, "Inna al-Muslim la yanjus." That the Prophet ﷺ said to Abu Hurairah, which is also in fiqh, that we know that Abu Hurairah, that he said to the Prophet ﷺ when he was in a state of impurification, major impurification, and he wouldn't want to be around the Prophet ﷺ, so he went to take that bath, and then he came back to the Prophet ﷺ. He asked, Abu Hurairah, where were you? He says, and he was shy to tell what happened to him, that he had to make a ghusl because of that which is of him having that wet dream to the end of it. So he went to take a bath. The Prophet ﷺ said at the end of the hadith, "O Abu Hurairah, that a mu'min never becomes impurified, or never becomes impure. That the mu'min never becomes what? Impure." So this is another dalil to show that what? It's permissible for the woman to what? Enter the masjid, if she's on her mens. If she's to enter the masjid. Also, from those evidences, so number one dalil is the woman who was black, walida to Sauda. That was number one. Number two is the hadith of Abu Hurairah, radiyallahu anhu arda. Of that which is of, where Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu had came to the Prophet ﷺ and he was shy, he took to take a bath and he came back. The Prophet ﷺ asked, "Where did you go? What happened to you?" He said, "O Messenger of Allah, something happened to you, I had to take a bath." And the Prophet ﷺ said at the end of the hadith, "Ya Abu Hurairah, inna al-mu'min la yanjus." O Abu Hurairah, verily the mu'min never becomes impure. Also likewise, which strengthens this hukum, is another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, is where that which is during the times of i'tikaf, during the times of Ramadan, where the women stay in the masjid, where they make i'tikaf, in the masajid, and that which will afflict the woman or afflict the sister during that time, that for example she makes a niyyah to make i'tikaf for a certain amount of days, she's not on her mens. Then during those days, her mens is on, or it comes on, or that which also takes place for the men, of that which they have of wet dreams to the end of it. And also from the mu'takif, of that which is of women who make i'tikaf. He said these are states and these are instances. He said that it's clear they're going to happen, take place. And they happened during the time of the Prophet ﷺ in abundance. And it was something that was widespread and it was known. And it is far off to say that the Prophet ﷺ did not have knowledge of it. It's far off to say that the Prophet ﷺ, what everyone? Did not have knowledge of what was taking place. And what did we say in the lesson last week? What did we say of that qa'idah? A couple of weeks ago, sisters. If something is what they call, that's going to afflict, and something becomes widespread, there has to be some ilm or clarification for it. Remember what we said? And that qa'idah is what they call what? It's not permissible. لا يجوز وقت تأخير البيان عن وقت الحاجة. It's not permissible to put off that which the people need of clarification and knowledge due to the dire need of it. The sisters remember that? Jayyid. So in this instance, you'll find that the Prophet ﷺ never made any type of reprimandment of anyone, even though this was something that was known. that there was going to be sisters in the masjid that's going to be on their ments. There's going to be people that more than likely going to probably have a wet dream in the masjid. There's going to be different circumstances will necessitate that it's going to render them in a state of major impurity. All these took place during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and all these type of circumstances, and there was no clarification from the Prophet ﷺ where he prohibited the sisters from what? Coming in the masjid. Also, from those evidence, so number one, the first dalil is what, sisters? The dalil of that which is the what? The one who was black from that which is from the neighborhood of the Arab, and they freed her. They freed her, she came to the Prophet ﷺ, and she became Muslim, and she had that little tent, or she pitched that little tent in the masjid, and she had that little place, and she was there for some days. That's number one. Number two is the hadith of Abu Hurairah, that a mu'min does not become what? Impure. And also the third is what we're mentioning now, is that which is of, as they say, mimma amma bihi al-balwa, something that was widespread all throughout the community during the time of the Prophet ﷺ and during the time of the Sahaba, from the sisters, the women, and that which is of the men, and they were making i'tikaf. And the Prophet ﷺ had knowledge of that which was going to take place, especially during the time where a woman more than likely have her mens while she's making i'tikaf. And there's no way to say that the Prophet ﷺ did not have knowledge of that, due to the fact that this is something that was widespread. And that the Muslims needed what? Knowledge of that. Which causes for us to say that qa'idah again, which is what? It's not permissible to leave off clarification of something in which the people need that knowledge of it, especially if the dire need calls for that matter. The dire need for that matter was something of what the Muslims needed of clarification for ilm, due to the fact that it was something that was known, it was widespread. And they needed knowledge to know how to conduct themselves in those matters. And the Prophet ﷺ never made reprimandment on none of the women during them time, another sahabiyat, radwanullahi alayhim ajma'een, never made reprimandment of any of those women, of the sisters, for them coming in the masjid while they were in a state of i'tikaf. So those three matters, is it clear, sisters? طيب. Another thing we want to mention, now we want to get back to the hadith we mentioned, Bulugh al-Maram, because this is from their dalil, the evidences to show that they said it's impermissible. They used the hadith of what we talked about 3 weeks ago, the hadith of Aisha during Hajj. That the Prophet ﷺ has said, افعلي ما يفعل الحاج غير أن لا تطوفي بالبيت حتى تطهري. Do what a person, the Hajj does, other than what? Going or make a circumambulation around the Kaaba until you become purified. That's the hadith that they used to say is prohibited for a sister or a Muslim sister to come to the masjid. طيب. The Prophet ﷺ, so what do we say in response to this? Number one, to hadith of Aisha. That the Prophet ﷺ did not prohibit Aisha from coming in the masjid here in this hadith. He only prohibited her from what? Making tawaf. That's it. If you notice in the narration, it says what? Don't make tawaf. That's it. That's the most of what you'll find in the hadith. But it's not mentioned for her not to come in the masjid or to stay in it. For that reason, the Prophet ﷺ prohibited her from making tawaf. Because the tawaf around the Kaaba is considered salah. Let's just skip it down here. So that which we say, that the Prophet ﷺ had prohibited her from making tawaf, but he did not prohibit her from coming in the masjid. And that's it. And what this hadith or this narration contains of prohibition, that's it. What do you put in here? Jayyid. So that which is of the hadith of Aisha, that we do not can use that, or they cannot use that as a dalil for those who say that a sister cannot come in the masjid. Also, likewise, the last thing I want to mention, we'll stop here inshallah, that the asl mutaqaddim inzalahu sallallahu wafd thaqif fil masjid qabla islamihim. This is another evidence, and then we'll stop here inshallah. So I gave everybody, how many evidences altogether, everyone? 4. This is the 5th one, it will stop. This is the 5th one, it will stop. Also, the Prophet ﷺ had came to wafd, when the Prophet ﷺ had came as a guest, or he had, received as those guests, that wafd, those group who came from Thaqif, and they came in the masjid before their Islam. And we know the kuffar, or those who are non-Muslims, are more impure than that which is of what? That which is of, in their, rather than a state of major impurity of that which is in their aqidah, and sometimes even in their bodies. And the most major impurity is when someone is impure as far as in their belief, which is stronger. So this is what happened. Wafdu Thaqif came in the masjid before the Islam. So that group of people who were at the time, they weren't Muslims, stayed in the masjid some days. The Prophet ﷺ, and he was calling them to Islam. And he received them in the masjid. There was some from that which is from the Christians from Najran, from a place called Najran. They were Christian. So they came to the Prophet ﷺ to hear the truth, to hear and to know about Islam. So if the Prophet ﷺ said, this indicates that the permissibility that the Prophet ﷺ had what? That which is of a mushrik who upon kufr, certain instances, he let them come in the masjid to give them what? Da'wah. And they also remained in it those days in the hope that they was going to more than likely accept Islam and they'll be guided. Even though that which they had and the state they were in is what? Everyone? Rijis, impure, as far as in their aqidah. Right or wrong? People who are not Muslim, their aqidah is not pure. Is their aqidah pure? Their aqidah is what? It's impure. They believe in that which Jesus died on the cross. They believe that Jesus died in sacrifice for the atonement of the sins of mankind, and that Jesus is the third of three, and that he's the Son of God. All of that is an impure type of belief. Right or wrong? It's kufr. It's disbelief due to the fact that Allah belied all those notions. Allah says in the Quran in so many places He never took it on a son. He doesn't have a son. And if He did have a son, it would be that necessitates He have a need for something. Which so shows us also that Allah Ta'ala is weak. That He has a need. It's kufr. You understand? And that also Allah died on the cross, or He's half of Allah and half of a human being, and then also Isa has to the end of it. That which is of kufr. But that which is of the people who died on the cross, for that which is of the people from the Nasara who sat in the masjid, they were upon that impure aqidah. And they were in there. Because Allah Ta'ala said that the mushrikun are najis in the book. And meaning, and they're that which is of their aqidah and their belief system. For it's not far off to believe that what? That which is also the state that they were in was in the state of what, everyone? Major impurity. Not to say that it's permissible that for a person to be in major impurity to come in the masjid, and we're telling people who's upon that state, come in, tafadal, you can do what you want. No. But that which is of that need, and there's a need for a woman if she comes in the masjid, if she wants to listen to the durus and the lessons, that's a need. And we'll talk about that inshallah, and that's the reason why Shaykh al-Albani was saying here that a woman could come into the lessons and listen to them if there's a need to do so. And we'll talk about that inshallah. So here, from giving da'wah, likewise, is a need. And they came in during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, gave them da'wah, and they were in the state of that which is of that major impurity in their belief system. And it's not far off to say that they were also in the state of that major impurity in their bodies. For that which is of course we know, that which is of defecation, and that which is also of urination. And we know that the non-Muslims out here don't do that when they go to the bathroom, majority of them. For verily the Muslim and the Muslimah are more purified in their state and more purified in their place. And they are more deserving of entering the masjid and staying in it. So if that was happening in the case with them, then we do not. How can we say here in this instance that the what? That the sister is prohibited from coming in the masjid, if this is the case? For a Muslim does not become what? Impure, or a believer does not become impure, as we said in Hadith Abu Hurairah. So that which we mentioned here, we'll stop here, inshallah. We'll stop here. So that was of total evidences we gave the sisters was how much? 5. Tayyib. Now there's a advice I wanted to give to the sisters, and even though my advice is nothing, but it's just some brotherly advice. Respect the other masajid if they take the statement that it's impermissible for the woman to come in the masjid. If another Salafi masjid you'll find, they say, for example, we heard Sheikh Saleh Fawzan say such and such, sister, you can come in, but you can't stay. Respect their statement, because that is a statement of Ahl. Don't come in the masjid with start arguing, bickering. Well, so, I can't come in the masjid. How you not going to allow me to come in the masjid? Nah, stay away from arguing, bickering. If the brothers have that opinion, respect it. Respect it in order to keep that which is the word of the Salafi strong, and to keep their unification. Is it clear? Leave out through this way. You can't. That's the sister side. To keep the unification, if they say that, then say mashallah and try to find another way in order to attain the ilm. But do not come in there and start fitna and start arguing and bickering and saying, let me in the masjid, astaghfirullah to be late. How could you do this? Stay away from fitna and causing chaos and causing differing and bickering. Stay away from all that and respect that which our brothers and sisters you'll find in other cities that take that, even though, like we said, the dalil to us. And for me, inshallah, is that which is the dalil. We'll continue this next week, inshallah. Also, continuing and also elaborating on the different evidences and proofs in this matter. But other than that, also we want to say to the sisters, if they do come to the masjid and they're in that state, make sure they are in the state of being clean. That's another thing that's very important. We're clean and they're also hygienic, and they also take that in consideration, and also to our brothers likewise. We don't allow our brothers, and we gave advice, and I gave advice to our brothers talking about how to come in here and having a good smell and try to abstain from harming the Muslims by having a bad smell. Those are things which are highly emphasized in our religion to keep our aqidah purified and to keep our bodies purified. People think it's our aqidah is purified. That's, of course, that's the most important of purifications, to purify your aqidah. But also, it's incumbent and binding upon us to keep our bodies purified likewise. That's also in our religion, to keep both purified. So we'll stop here, and that'll be enough for today. If there's any questions about the lesson, we'll take a couple of questions. We'll stop. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم وسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وأستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Any questions about the lessons? تفضل. Say it again. I'm sorry. I can't hear. I can't hear what you're saying, sister. I cannot hear whatsoever. I can't. If you don't mind, sister, I'm not trying to be rude. Is there any way you could come a little bit from behind the sister's wall? So she can, so I can hear it clearly. I can't hear clear. I can't hear at all. She's in her salat. If there's a khula', I gave the details on it generally. Number one, I want to say about divorce. I want to close this door off before it starts to open up. Any divorce, khula', divorce questions, I'll do what the ulama do. If it's something of a personal issue, let your husband and the wife come to the masjid. We'll hear both sides so we can sort it out. If it's a personal issue between one's husband and spouse, let them come to the masjid. I will not answer no questions pertaining to marriage and divorce or khul' or anything. Rather, those are the most dangerous of matters. We can generally give the ahkam, but as far as trying to apply it to a specific situation, then they're very delicate and they're very intricate. For anything that's personal, I advise the sisters for the email so we can try to sort it out with the husband so we can know what's going on. That's number one. Number two, I clarified to the sisters last week. I said what Sheikh Ubay mentioned generally, where I asked him, Hafidhullah wa ra'ah, I asked him last year, I said, and this is a situation that took place in Philadelphia. I said, if a brother gets a khul', if a sister gets a khul' while she's pregnant, or while she's on her mens, if she's on her mens, does the khul' carry out or not? While she's on her mens. He said, firstly, the brothers, it's better for them to abstain from divorcing their wives or giving them a khul' while they're on their mens. Secondly, if he gives her a khul', where the sister asks the husband for the khul', he asks the woman for the khul', and he says, I grant it to you, clearly. And the sister gives back that which is the dowry, even if she's on her mens, the Sheikh said the khul' carries out. The khul' carries out. The marriage is over. The marriage is dissolved because we said that a khul' is infisakh of fasakh aqd nikah. It's dissolvement of the marriage contract. There is no ruju' or going back to your husband, except that there has to be renewed another marriage contract. I asked him this last time, and once the khul' is carried out, the man does not spend on her, due to the fact that there's no ruju', there's no coming back. It's just done, the marriage is over, it's finished. The woman will have her mens, that which is one mens, and that's it. And after she becomes purified, she get married again. If she's on her pregnancy, she cannot get married until she has what? Until she has the baby. And that's it. As far as specific situations, sisters, I do not want to open that door up. If there's something specific, let the husband and the wife come to the masjid and let me hear, and let the brothers here that's in charge, let us hear both sides so we can get all the details in that specific situation, because I don't want those statements of mine be misconstrued and used against a brother outside the masjid, and then he comes to me and says, sister said, you said such and such, and it causes a lot of fitna. So is there anything else about the lesson? Fadal. The musalla that's prayed outside. The musalla is outside. This is a masjid. Musalla is of that which is the Eid. Things like that is where a person sets up a place where the people pray. That's a musalla. All this is the masjid. All that's the masjid. All of this is the masjid. Even the hallway right here behind, that's the masjid. That's not the musalla, that's a masjid. As far as I know, this is all of a masjid that we're in right now. This takes the hukum of a whole masjid. Anything else about the lesson?
I have another question.
Tafadhal. No, if the sisters can come, they can come to listen to the lessons. You're still in the masjid, though. For what I know, this is still the masjid. Unless the brothers here in the administration tell me otherwise, but as far as what I know, you guys sitting back here, and this other side, that's still the part of the masjid. Unless the brothers let me know otherwise, if this is separate, where it's divided in certain parts. But as far as I know, that's still part of the masjid. Absolutely. 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 No, absolutely. That's considered also taking ilm. But like I said, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, if it's, we gave the awareness to our sisters, so take in consideration what? Take consideration of that which is, and I hate to say this, but it's a shame that we have to remind our people of this. Be very, very, take in consideration one's hygiene and keeping himself cleanly when he comes. That I highly emphasize that. I highly emphasize that. Even for the brothers. Even when I tell our brothers to come to the masjid, if they feel that they have some odors on their body or on their feet, not to harm their brothers and the people in the masjid, to keep their bodies cleansed, to keep their bodies cleansed with a good smell to the end of it. Even though it's not permissible for the woman to come out with perfume, we're talking about the brothers here. But make sure you keep your bodies cleanly and take in consideration that which is of hygiene. Is it clear, everyone? No. And that last question, that's it, we'll finish. That's it. That's it. Tafadhal. I didn't say it generally like that. I said it with some details. Oh man, that's like a lesson. That's like repeating the whole lesson again. If you can, inshallah, if one of the sisters, ask one of them to give you the details we mentioned in the lesson, inshallah. Because there's a lot of details in that. And if you can, ask one of the sisters, inshallah, they'll be upon the aspect of ta'awun al-birri wa taqwa. Inshallah, one of the sisters who are from our community that can aid you in that matter, where that will be from the aspect of cooperation upon birr and taqwa. So get the information from her, inshallah, the sisters will help you so you can be enlightened in that matter, inshallah. We'll stop here, inshallah. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وأستغفرك وأتوب إليك.